If you are drawn to the mysterious, the mystical, the magical, you are exactly at the right place. These are stories between worlds, experienced in the now. Something woke me up last night. In the night of the full Wolf Supermoon. I checked the time. It was 11 minutes past 3. At my feet, my black cat Lila was soundly asleep. I got up and opened the curtains to let in the light of the brilliant moon. Light streamed into the room and fell over my bed, over the cage of Leafy my bird, over the sleeping cat, over my sleeping dog. It was only me who was awake. Before going to bed, I stood on my stoop, adoring the full moon. It was so bright, and the whole garden came alive as it shone into the spaces that are not always lit. And it was quiet. But now the wind had picked up. Actually, the wind was blowing fiercely. It was the southeaster. Earlier that evening, when I stood on my stoop, adoring the full moon, it was all quiet, magical. Nothing was moving, and you could sense the aliveness, you could sense the energy of the plants, of the earth, of the birds sleeping in the trees. But now it was different. The wind was howling, the southeaster was blowing so hard it bent the soft branches of the trees that grew in the garden. This was not new. I live in the Cape of Storms after all. But I heard the wind has not always been like this. I heard this so clearly. And the presence of Sophia lifted me, reminded me of when everything was created. The presence of the Spirit moving over everything. The movement of the energy. I did not dwell for long in that memory as I became aware of a presence of another goddess. It was Diana. Now, Diana is associated with the moon and wild animals. Her domain is the night. I have met her before, only once, and it was on the evening when I got my crystal ball and I wanted to clean it in the ocean. So I took it down with me to the water, to the ocean, and sat with it on the beach and asked who was present, and it was Diana. She was just a presence, but a comforting one. It was not long after that I also became aware of Hecate walking the perimeter of my property. Again, I felt gratitude. I waited for the connection to come, for the call, as I had no preconceived ideas of where this would lead, or if I would be invited anywhere. Again, I heard the wind has not always been like this. This ever-changing nature of the wind is something I do feel every day in my life. Let me know in the comments if you also feel that. But I digress. Let me tell you what happened next. I saw a beautiful bird. My mind tried to name it. I was thinking bird of paradise because it was so beautiful. But it was not the bird of paradise as we know it. It looked differently. It was almost a mix between that and a peacock. It had this beautiful tail that also formed like eyes on the feathers. Just as I noticed the bird, it flew, and I followed it. To be more precise, it felt as if it lent me its wings as I moved with it. After a while, flying with the full moon shining, I saw to the left, before we descended, Pegasus. Close to the moon, it looked almost as if he wanted to circle it, but I could not keep my gaze on him as we were descending, and we were descending on a village, a very old village, with narrow cobblestone streets and houses with low roofs. There was no light in the streets, but where we landed, there was some moonlight on the stones, and it was like a town square, a bit of an open space. As we got closer and closer to the ground, I saw that the town square was not empty. There was one figure. It reminded of an old woman, more so of the witches that you would see in children's storybooks, fairy tales. She had a hunched frame, and she wore brown tattered robes. If you want to, you can guess how this turned out, but then you should pause the video and in the comments tell me what you think happened next. As I now stood alone on this town square, except for this figure that was some distance away from me, there was a presence. Ominous is the best word I can think of. But the figure started to walk down one of the streets, and I was drawn to her. I followed her. It was almost as if I could not help myself. I just knew this was what I was meant to do. As we walked, there was almost no light, just enough light for me to see her walking in front of me, a few meters in front of me, about 15-20 meters. There was no other movement, no sound. It was very strange. Although I walked quite a distance behind her, when she suddenly stopped, I almost bumped into her, or rather it, because I could not clearly before know who this figure was. But now that I stood with my face almost right against the back of her head, so close that I could see the weave of this garment, and I could pick up this nauseating smell of it. She did not have to turn around. I knew there was no face. But immediately after this realization, I also knew that this is fear, and fear is not real. And I proclaimed telepathically, there is nothing that can bring me fear. You are not real. Fear is not real. While I said that, I suddenly felt empowered, and I also felt, in a way, grateful for this moment. As I proclaimed that, the garments fell into a heap on the ground. The road ahead was now open, but it was still dark, and it did not look as if it was leading somewhere. At least not somewhere that I wanted to go. To the right, the road split to the right, and there I could see some light, and there was an overgrown path, some green. I felt the presence of life. If I would walk in that direction, there were some voices also. But quite frankly, this experience was already so powerful that I just thanked the moon, I thanked Pegasus, I thanked Diana, and I shifted back to my room. The wolf moon was now only partially visible through the branches of the trees. It almost looked as if it was held by the branches, captured by it. And I laid with open eyes, looking at it as long as I could see it. Even in the moments when I closed my eyes, I could still see the movement of the branches, the shadows that it casted with the moon behind it. So bright was the light entering the room. As the moon moved out of my sight, I just smiled and let myself drift to the dream dimension, where another adventure awaited. Thank you for listening, for being here, for your presence. I'm sending you my infinite love till I speak to you again in the next video. Goodbye.